guys, my name is Sam. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you my February wrap up. I have started to use Ali from Hardback Hoarder's yearly spreadsheet for collecting stats. So being that I've been using that, I thought it would be fun to put some stats in at the beginning of my video. Not all of the stats I collect or all of the stats that are used in the spreadsheet, but just some fun ones. And if you want to check out the spreadsheet, I'll link it down below. So for February, I read 15 books and DNF'd one. That made a total of 3,910 pages. 2 were graphic novels, 4 were novellas, and 10 were full-length books. I read 3 in audio format, 6 physical books, and 7 ebooks. I had an average rating of 4, and I read 3 books with LGBTQIA plus representation and 3 books with disability rep. Those might overlap, and I'm not too sure if they do, but just wanted to let you know. So those are all the stats that I have. Let's get into what I read, what I rated them, and how I felt about them. I'm going to try to keep this as short and concise as possible because this is the most amount of books I've ever read in a month. So I don't want to make this too long. So the first book that I read this month was The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. This was the first short novella in the Improbable Meet Cute series. And this was a short story, like I said, following Callum and Tara, who correspond over emails for the course of 10 to 14, it might be 10 years before they happen to meet in person by mistake. And Callum knows who they are to each other, but Tara doesn't. And he kind of plays that out for a little bit until, they fall for each other. It was really cute. I really enjoyed it. I read it in one sprint, actually. I think it was one in a little bit, but I flew through that. It was amazing. I haven't read all of the ones in the series yet, but I think this one will stand as my favorite one. The next book that I read was 16 Ways to Break a Heart by Laura Strasnick. This was a part of my Wheel of TBR, and this was a story told in letters about a toxic relationship between the two main characters, Natalie and Dan. And basically, she left him a trail of letters that explain her side or her view of how their relationship went down. This story was a hot ass mess. I rated this 1 star. I really hated it. It's supposed to be YA, but like the topics didn't give YA to me. And that's really all I have to say about it. I didn't enjoy it. The freaking female main character was batshit crazy. And honestly, I can't tell you if the main male character was either. He seemed to be an unreliable narrator. So overall, it just wasn't a good book, and I will be unhauling this from my shelves when I can. The next book that I read in the month was Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. This one follows Farley and Meyer. It's a grumpy sunshine, boss, age gap, and fake dating romance. So really good buzzword tropes there. And this book was absolutely fucking hilarious. Like, it had me laughing out loud so many times, but ultimately I ended up rating this a 3.5. I think I could bump that up to a 4 based on the memory that I have of the book, but the pacing was just off for me because especially in the second half, I just felt like they rushed through their relationship and coming together. But I am super excited to hear my friends' thoughts on this because this will actually be this Winnie Reader's pick for next month. And maybe when I participate in that live show, I might change my views. Like I said, I was in between a 3.5 and a 4 when I read it. The next book that I read was Heartstopper Volume 1. This is a YA gay awakening story between Nick and Charlie, and I rated this one 5 stars. I absolutely freaking loved it. It was such a cute coming of age story for me, and the art is beautiful, and I'm so happy that I finally got to pick this up. I know this one has been a banger for a lot of people for a very long time. So of course the next book that I picked up was Heartstopper Volume 2, and this one is obviously the second in the series, continuing on with Nick and Charlie's relationship. This one I ended up rating 4 stars. It was still really cute, but it felt kind of repetitive to me. The next book that I read in the month was Surrender by Rosie. I'm blanking on the last name. This was an erotic short, and I ended up rating it 4 stars. It followed Lennox and Yara, who make a deal 12 years ago. In 12 years, if they're still single, they'll meet up and have a weekend together, basically. It was fun. It was a time. The only reason that I rated it 4 stars instead of 5 was because it was a lot. Like, obviously it's an erotic novel, so it was a lot packed into that little short ass story. And also, the nickname Mama made me cringe. I hated that. So 4 stars for me. The next book that I read was the second novella in the Improbable Meet Cute series, and that was the one by Abby Jimenez, The Worst Wingman Ever, following Holly, who was a hospice nurse for her grandmother, and John, who accidentally put a Valentine from his brother to his girlfriend on her car instead of his. So they were like kind of impassing in the parking lot for majority of the story until they meet each other finally at the end, and it was really cute. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I can't really say why I gave it 4 instead of 5. I just remember feeling like it wasn't enough. I think it needed to be more than 60 pages, honestly. But 4 stars is still a great rating, and I would definitely recommend picking this up. Next book that I read in the month was my buddy read with Karina, and that was Loving Romeo by Laura Pavlov. This one follows a retired boxer named Romeo and a rich girl named Demi, who is kind of hated by everyone in the town because she's a part of this rich family, and it's supposed to be an enemies to lovers romance. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. The romance and the humor was top tier. When I tell you this was great. I also enjoyed the aspect of the boxing. We got to see real time him have a boxing match, and I have never read that before. So like being able to see the fight play out in my head was super dope. And the only reason that I bumped the 0.5 stars was because there was just a moment where the pacing was a little bit off. They were like dating, but not really, just kind of seeing each other on and off, and then all of a sudden it was like, I love you. And I felt like the jump was where I was lacking the on-page progression of their relationship, so I bumped it down to a 4.5. Next book that I read was That Kind of Guy by Stephanie Archer. This one follows Avery and Emmett, who fake dates and fake engage and almost fake marry each other in order for him to look better and become the mayor, and for her to get a co-signment on a restaurant loan so that she can be able to buy this restaurant that she has been managing and wanting to buy for a very long time. This book was also another one that was just so freaking good, and really only got docked that half star because, like I said, fake dating to fake engaged to fake marriage was just too much for me to suspend my belief, and also for me to be convinced that the town, all of these people that have known you guys all of your lives, were actually convinced that you guys were doing this within, like, I don't even know what the time frame was, but it was fast. But it was still really super cute, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. And if you want like live reactions, this one is in my TBR tournament vlog. The next book that I read was The Bromance Book Club by Lissa K. Adams. This is the first in the Bromance series. It's a second chance romance between Gavin and Thea after he finds out that she has been faking the big O in their marriage, and they decide to get a divorce, but he doesn't really want to get divorced, so he joins his friend's book club where they read romance books and try to implement those practices into their real lives to understand their women better. This book was so freaking good. I gave this one a 4.5 as well. I love this, and I love the commentary that it starred with women and toxic masculinity, and you know, like the shit about them reading romance books. The reason that I bumped it down the 0.5 was because some of the side characters, I just really couldn't stand them, and for that reason, like, I couldn't fathom giving this book a 5-star because the side characters, especially her sister Liv, were a big part of the story, and I fucking dreaded reading about her every time she came on. Like, why the fuck are you here? Get the fuck out of my face. For real. She just was given big big fucking hater vibes, and I hated that for Thea because I know Thea also wanted to make her marriage work, and Liv was just like standing in the way every time. You're big mad, go somewhere. Anyway, that bothered me, and she also had the wives and girlfriends of all the other players to deal with, and they were also fucking rude. So 4.5, but still a really good read, and can't wait to continue on in the series. Then I read Head Over Heels by Carla Sorensen. This is the second in the Wilder series, following the brother Cameron Wilder and Ivy after they have like an elevator meet cute and then think they'll never see each other again. But coincidentally, her father sends her to his small town to renovate a house that her mother left her on their will in order to prove that she deserves to be a part of his company. This one, it really saddens me to say, did not live up to the hype of the first book. And if you know me, you know that I talk about One and Only by Carla Sorensen all the freaking time. I absolutely love that book. It made it into my top 3 of my top 10 last year. And I had really high hopes for this book, but it just didn't hit the same. It had similar aspects where the writing and the topic of grief was super beautiful, and for that I enjoyed it, but it was a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, and for me that just didn't work because it just gave that she was a bitch and she didn't deserve to be with Cameron. Like, if you guys would read this book and see the way that Cameron was treating her, she didn't deserve to be with him, and there was very little to no character development on her end. Like, she realized that she was a certain way, but it was kind of like, I don't really know what to do about that and how I can change for you. I didn't enjoy that. So this book got a 3.5. I will still be continuing on in the series. This is the farthest the series has out right now, but I am interested to see where it goes and hopefully like the next book better than this one. Then I read the Sweeney Readers book club pick, and that was Real by Kennedy Ryan. This one follows Cannon, who is a big-time director, and Neva, who has never been in a movie, but he just so happened to see her on Broadway and think that she was the moment, she was the star, and she had to be the main character of his next movie. And then, you know, they had this little behind-the-scenes romance going on, and they fall in love. It also has a major plot point of disability rep, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This was a 5 out of 5 stars. The writing was so beautiful and quotable and really hit. For this one, I also had a side character that I hated with a fucking passion, which was also her sister. Like, what is with sisters being so fucking spiteful and hateful? The shit that she would say and do just really blew my fucking mind. But in this aspect, because we didn't see her as much, I think that's why it didn't really affect my rating. But she was a fucking bitch. Sorry for all the curses in here. Anyway, I would definitely recommend picking this one up, and I can't wait to read more from Kennedy Ryan. Then I read The Infamous Flock by Kate Stewart. This is the first in the Ravenhood series. Following Cece, who moves in with her father for the summer in order to get her inheritance, she has to work at his plant, and she falls in with the wrong crowd, and things start happening, you know? This was absolutely amazing. 5 out of 5 stars. Cecilia was a dumbass bitch, but I was here for it every step of the way. This had a lot of things that I don't typically like in a book. I don't want to say just romance, but I wouldn't typically enjoy a toxic relationship, or I don't normally read books where there are multiple love interests, but I still ate it up, and I am excited to be a part of the hood, okay? I am reading the rest of the series this month, so I'm excited to see where this goes, and super happy to have read it, to have it. Thank you, Dana, and to all of my friends who made me pick this up. And the last book that I read in the month was another novella called Romanced by the Billionaire Part 1. This one I wasn't too sure about. I honestly just picked it up to fulfill my last prompt and black out the bingo board. But it ended up being really good. I gave it a 4 stars. I don't remember the names of any of the characters or anything like that, but I know it was a romance following the main male character whose brother just passed away, and he was giving custody of their kids. And then the female main character was the cousin of the brother's wife who also passed away. I think they got into a crash or something, and they are rivals. So now they have to come together to try to raise these children, and they don't really like each other that much. Another reason why I was confused about this one, though, was because the author broke it down into 6 parts, but it's a full book. So basically, if you go on Goodreads, you'll see there's 6 parts of this, and each contains like 8 chapters, I believe. But then at the end of her Goodreads like profile, she has a bind up where they're all together, but they're on Kindle Unlimited in separate parts. Anyways, so that didn't really make sense to me, because obviously then that means this part ended up on a cliffhanger, and now I have to go read 6 other parts when you could have just gave me a book to begin with. But nonetheless, it was still really good, and I do plan on continuing in that series to see how it unfolds. And last but not least, I want to talk about my DNF of the month. Not really much to talk about. It was the Thrills and Chills book club pick for the month of February, which was 20 Years Later by Charlie Donnelly. I solely want to believe that this was a DNF for me because I picked up the audiobook, because when I entered in the live chat where they were discussing it, they said that it was really hard to follow with the audio without having the physical book. So I want to believe, like I said, that I would have liked it had I had the physical copy, but I only had access via audio, and after about 12 to 20%, I can't even remember how far I made it in, I just couldn't do it anymore. There were too many timelines and too many things happening to actually follow, especially when I'm listening to these audios while Ezra's around and like running around and doing stuff, and I'm trying to focus on him as well. So I just couldn't do it, and that was why I ended up DNFing. I don't know if I'll ever pick up this specific book again, but I am willing to give Charlie Donnelly another try. But that is everything that I read in the month of February. Let me know if you have read any of these, and if you agree or disagree on my thoughts. I always love to hear about that down below. And also, if you want to let me know what your favorite read of February was, I'd love to know as well. I'm always looking, well, not really looking, but I'm always finding more things to add to my TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.